Hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another Doctor Who review. And today's Doctor Who review is none other than Blood of the Daleks. And we're starting off with Blood of the Daleks Part 1. So this is a brand new era and a brand new era arc, starting with Lucie Miller. So, how does Blood of the Daleks start? Well, essentially, the Doctor is going through the vortex when all of a sudden he finds himself looking in the glass of the rotor and realizing that someone has come aboard his TARDIS. This someone being none other than Lucie Miller herself. The Doctor and Lucie have a back and forth as the pair of them try to figure out exactly what's happened. Lucie is being very vague, but it's quite clear from the get-go that Lucie knows more than she's telling. However, being aboard the Doctor's TARDIS and not really knowing him as a person, you can't blame her for being evasive. She wants to know who this guy really is. She's only been talked to him about by certain celestial beings, and to make it worse, it seems like the pair of them really aren't going to get along straight away. Then they land on the planet Red Rocket Rising, where the Doctor's TARDIS seems to come into collision with a car in a chase. It turns out that some career politicians, well, one of them being a politician and the other being a scientist, have been trying to escape some mob of local citizens who seem to be very displeased in them. The Doctor and Lucie do everything they can to help the two civilians and then eventually manage to evade capture and start wandering around Red Rocket Rising, trying to figure out more and more about the planet. The Doctor and Lucie encounter a man who claims that he knows of the end of days. He talks of monsters from the skies, warning people to stay home, to not go out, and to watch the skies. He tries to hand Lucie a tinfoil hat, and he claims that the Doctor is to blame for everything. Now, the Doctor, of course, being confused, not remembering ever coming to Red Rocket Rising, is really disturbed by the fact that this stranger that he's bumped into is scared of the Time Lords. The Doctor and Lucie then have an argument outside upon why Lucie knows who the Time Lords are. Now, this really neatly ties back into what I was saying earlier about celestial beings. In other words, I mean that Lucie came into contact with the Time Lords, and she explains eventually to the Doctor that apparently the Time Lords think that because Lucie Miller had seen a specific event in time and space, that she is very crucially important to the Doctor's ongoing adventures. The Doctor calls them out for this and calls it gerrymandering. He says they're interfering more than they should be, and they're the only people he can't stand when they do this. He then gets in a big kerfuffle and Lucie and him go separate ways. Lucie decides to try and enlist in the help of the Daleks when they decide to land on Red Rocket Rising, whilst the Doctor goes into a lab to look into the conspiracy of a missing professor. However, what he discovers sooner or later is what really disturbs him deep down. It turns out that the professor, who everyone believes to be dead, has pretty much mind-swapped with a young lady who was his lab assistant and has been growing human mutations to make his very own Daleks. It also turns out that the Daleks have now locked up Lucie for being an associate of the Doctor, and now they have fed a politician a story that the Doctor is some form of terrorist who has killed many, many Daleks. We finish with a cliffhanger of the Doctor being attacked by human Daleks, and are left with the question of what will the Daleks do next. So, what did I think of Blood of the Daleks? It's a great introduction to honestly one of my most favourite companions out there of the Eighth Doctor's era. If I had to put like tops, Molly, Lucie, and Charlotte. We can't really get too much into Molly because you'll see her down the line. But essentially, I feel like Lucie Miller is one of the best companions. Why? Because she kind of gives me Rose Tyler vibes and Martha Joan vibes and kind of just any companion in Doctor Who history who mouths back to the Doctor and doesn't take his crap. She's also got that really great down-to-earth vibe where you can find her relatable and compare her to like your friends and such. She's just one of those characters you just can't help but love. The Doctor, however, I feel like gets a little bit less time in this audio to really be his flamboyant. I feel like McGann in this story starts to feel like Capaldi, which is not necessarily a bad idea, but I do feel like it hinders this loving vibe that we've had since Charlotte Pollard. However, it's fair enough that this happens on the basis of what happened to Charlotte and Keris. We can feel the Doctor getting more into a darker era, and we start to see Paul McGann's Doctor really grow as a character. The story itself, I feel like, is a really interesting plot. The way that we start off on Red Rocket Rising with civilians and getting to see both sides of the coin. I also especially love the twist with Professor Martez, when we finally find out that the Professor wasn't dead all along. And for that reason, I feel like I've got to give Blood of the Daleks, Part 1, a solid 7 out of 10. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next Doctor Who review. Stay beautiful, you incredible people.